starting right into this. This is the fun one. Don't need the oven preheated to anything. You don't need to worry about any of that. The only specialty equipment for this recipe is this. This is a spring form pan. It's usually made for cheesecakes or things where you want to leave the sides nice and pretty, but it's going to be a wet, soft cake like a custard cake usually is. And why it's a spring form is because it releases. So it has a hinge on the side and the bottom comes out. And you can make nice tarts, you can make nice cakes so that it bakes in this good shape, but then it just comes right off and you don't have to worry about it messing up the sides of your cake. So that is what a spring form is. You release the latch to take it apart, but that's only what you want to do when you're done. Once your cake is finished and it's all set up and firm in the freezer, then that's how you're going to remove it from the pan. You're going to just take the sides away, take it off, and then you have this beautiful service tray to serve your cake on. If you don't have a spring form pan, that's okay. If you're going to continue to bake in your life, then having one of those in your arsenal in your kitchen is really great. They're very affordable online or Target, all those kinds of home stores. But if you don't have one today or before you want to make this recipe, perfectly fine. You can make it in any kind of cake pan or like a glass Pyrex dish, a casserole dish. It doesn't matter. You're going to scoop it out and you're going to eat it and it's going to be delicious. Either pan you make it in, it's really okay. The point about the spring form is that you can release it really nicely without messing up the sides because it's a soft cake. It's not a baked cake. It's a soft, wet cake. So that's sort of the only reason why these pans are really nice to have. Again, if you don't have one, any pan will do. I'm using, I think this recipe says a 9-inch. Doesn't even say. It's for either a 9 or a 10-inch pan. So if you have a smaller pan, like a 6-inch spring form, you're gonna have more than what you need. You can maybe make 2 cakes or you can cut the recipe in half, okay? If you have a much bigger pan, then you're just gonna spread it out and have like little cheesecake bars instead of a big thick cheesecake. Also going to be delicious. So either way that this works out for you, it's gonna work out for you. Don't stress about the exact pan. If you have one of the smaller spring forms though, what I would do is either reduce the recipe or split it in half and then make like 1 cheesecake and then you can make another one another day or in 2 separate pans or, but yeah, since we're going for either a 9 or 10-inch pan, if you're working with a 5 or a 6-inch, then I would just cut it in half and you're just gonna work out pretty nice ratio there. And this is an easy recipe to cut in half. There's no like 3 eggs or odd numbers or anything, so it's pretty simple math. If you need to do that, you can go ahead and do that. The only thing that I have done so far is my cookie crumbs. I did this in a food processor just like a minute ago. I just pulsed the Oreos in the food processor until they turned into a crumb. I started with, I think it was 24 Oreos. I'm going to add in melted butter to that. I actually, let me think about this. I think I only did about 16 Oreos in that because I wanted to show you this other method. This is sort of my favorite way of making crumbs out of anything. They don't have to be perfectly fine Oreo crumbs. You can buy Oreo crumbs ready-made now because so many people like to use them for crusts. Let's see, I need 10 more, but we like the filling. Those pre-made crumbs are just the cookie crumbs. And so in this crust recipe, we want that filling. We're not just using the cookies, we're using all of it. And we want that creamy filling that's gonna give us a sweet texture to our crust. So put it in a ziploc bag or any kind of reusable bag that you might have. Make sure that it's really nice and sealed. This is a really fun one for the kids to do. Maybe a cup or a bowl, anything heavy, usually made of like clay or glass or like a wine bottle or something like that. And you just smash them. So it's really fun. This is something that you can definitely let the kids do in advance. Smash them up. It's really stress reducing and a lot of fun. You just want to continue doing it until it's broken down into a nice crummy texture. And once it's all broken down, we're going to add in our melted butter, and that's going to be our crust. Our whole crust is just Oreos and melted butter. So I'm going to finish these and add them in. They don't have to be as finely ground as the crumbs that you can buy in the store. So just as long as they're really like wet sand, broken down really well like that. See as I pour these in here and mix them all together, they're not all 100% like fine particles. More like dirt, which is perfect. So I've got some fine grain, some large grain, it's all crushed up, it's all good. See, various sizes and textures is okay, as long as it's pretty well broken down into Oreo crumbs, all right? And then we've got 4 tablespoons of butter. We should always try to use unsalted butter when we're baking, just because we don't need to add a lot of extra salt into our desserts. We do always add a little bit of salt because it helps the science of baking and it also helps enhance flavors. But if you're using salted butter, then that's even more salt you're adding in, and it's going to actually start to affect the taste. So always when baking, we try to use unsalted butter. So I'm adding in my 4 tablespoons of melted butter, making sure to get it all out of my little cup. If you melted it in a little bowl or something, make sure that you get all of it out. You want all that butter. It's part of the recipe. We really need it to help bind our cookie crumbs. We're going to just mix these, kind of folding them together, bringing from the bottom up to the top, making sure that it's all getting moistened and really well coated. Okay, if you do have a springform pan, even if you don't have a springform pan, if you're just using a regular cake pan also, you want to line the bottom with a little bit of parchment paper. So you can just cut a circle out of your parchment paper and line the bottom. But if you don't have parchment paper, you don't have to. Just give it a little bit of a tiny pan spray with some non-stick pan spray, which is what I'm going to do. It's just going to help once you want to get it out. You can slide your spatula underneath the crust a little bit better if it's not solidified and stuck to the bottom. Okay, so a little parchment paper would work, or just a little bit of pan spray will work. Not so much, and not a ton on the sides. Okay, so when you're spraying, be careful just on the bottom. Good. And then once you've got your spray and your cake ready, I'm going to just go ahead and pour in my crumbs. Whoops. Whoops. Okay. This is also one of the fun parts. Definitely fun for me and for the kids. You're going to use your hands, because it's the best tool that you have, to really pack these crumbs down into the bottom of the pan. So you want to make sure that you already washed your hands really, really well, because this is going to be served to everybody, right? You want to make sure that you're using clean hands. You're going to push this down onto the bottom of your pan. You want to push pretty hard. You want to make sure that it's really even, you know, not like all your crust is over on one side and then it's super thin over on the other side. You want to make sure that it's evenly distributed in a nice single layer. And you're pressing real firmly. Put all your strength into it, because we want to compact this. The more that we press it, the more that you compact it together into a very firm substance. Then once it's set up and cold and you slice into it, it's going to stay together as a solid sheet of crust rather than crumbling apart. And then you just have Oreo crumbs all over your plate. So nice and packed into your pan, really firm. Once you feel like it's not pressing down anymore and you've got it really, really tightly compacted all the way around, then you're good. You put it in the refrigerator so it can chill while we do the rest of the recipe. You gotta wash your hands though first. Okay. You don't need to wrap it, but if you have stuff in your fridge, like fish that might penetrate some of its smell, then just kind of loosely cover your Oreo cheesecake crust, but get it into the fridge so it can set up and get nice and firm while we're making our filling. Okay, super simple to put that crust together, and it's really delicious and actually really fun when you let someone help smash all those crumbs together. That's a really fun project. Just be careful, if you smash too hard, the bag might rip and then you get Oreo crumbs everywhere. So have fun, but not too much fun, I guess. So that is our crust. We are going to make our filling. Our filling is just almost as easy as the crust, you guys. This is going to be really fun, but this has a couple of really important techniques when it comes to baking. So we're going to be making a whipped cream, right? And then folding it together with our cream cheese mixture. So learning what to look for when you're looking for a stiff peak. That's what it means when something is whipped very, very firm. And so it holds a nice peak. And it's a good stiff whipped cream. And you're going to learn about folding, which is a really important baking technique. It's a nice gentle way of mixing things to make sure that they're really fluffy and airy and beautiful. So these are really important things as you go on and keep cooking in your lives. You're going to look back and like, oh, I know how to fold stuff. I did it with the cheesecake. So we're going to mix first. I'm using my stand mixer, as you can see. It does make things faster. If you have egg beaters, the kind that go around like the handheld egg beaters, you can totally use those. If you have a food processor, you can even use that to start and to get it like halfway whipped. After that, you do kind of have to use a little bit of elbow grease and use your hands, which is definitely doable. I had to make my own whipped cream from scratch when I was graduating from culinary school. It's part of the final exam. So everybody should learn how to do it. But if you have help, then it actually is a lot faster. Because what we want to do is we want to whip our heavy cream until it gets thick, and then it gets to be a nice stiff whipped cream. We're going to set that aside in the fridge so it stays nice and cold. And then we're going to fold that whipped cream eventually into our cream cheese mixture, which you don't need a mixer for. You can just beat by hand with a spoon. So if you don't have any of those things, if you don't have a stand mixer, if you don't have a plug-in egg beater with the 2 little whisks on it, or if you don't even have one of those handheld egg beaters, any of those things will work. If you don't have that, a food processor, you can start the cream in the food processor and get it like halfway whipped, which will really help you. And then you can finish it by hand to make it extra fluffy. Or you can start by hand. So you would put your cold cream into a bowl and whisk it as fast as you can, switching arms so that you make sure you get good exercise on both sides until it becomes firm and whipped cream. So it just takes a little longer, but it's definitely doable to do it by hand, okay? So however you're going to make your whipped cream, that's what we're going to do now. So we are using 2 cups of cold heavy cream. I'm going to turn the camera around here so you can look inside the bowl as it mixes. Voila. So I've got my whisk attachment. I'm going in 2 cups of heavy cream. We're going to start very slowly. If you are using a machine, a mixer, or a handheld mixer, then you want to start it on the lowest speed and then start increasing it gradually. 1, that helps the motor of the machine last longer. 2, you're not going to get a big splash of cream in your face and all over the kitchen walls. You want to start off nice and slow and steady. Let it become slightly thicker, and then start turning it up step by step, okay? Same thing in a food processor. If you want to do it in a food processor, what I would do is put your cold cream in the bowl with the regular blade mixer, and then pulse it until it starts to spin around and spin around. And the more that it spins around, that force is going to actually start making it thicker and thicker. And then once it's about halfway there, like it's thick, but it's not going to get fluffier because it just goes this way, not this way, then you're going to have to put it in a bowl and use a whisk to finish it up, okay? So you notice that I'm starting this kind of slow because again, I don't want it to splash up at me. I need it to sort of build up its thickness first. I'm just noticing that there are a couple of questions. I want to make sure that I address these if they need to be. I hope I answered that question about the Oreos. I definitely used the cream in the pulser as part of the binding. And that's why we can actually use a lot less butter because we're using that filling to help it stay nice and together. If you took out the cream and you just used cookies, then you would need a little bit more butter to help bind all the crumbs together. It's a good question. So now that it's going a little bit more, I'm going to turn it up faster, slowly and steadily. And it's just going to come together. Once it's whipped cream, I'm going to stop it because you can go a little too far with whipped cream and then it turns into butter, which is actually fun and scientific, but not what we're looking for today, okay? How many Oreos? If that question was about the crust, the total amount for the crust is 24 Oreos. Okay, so total 24 for the crust. And then we're going to be dealing with more Oreos for the filling and for the decoration. So I think in total we needed about 45 Oreos for this whole recipe, which actually is just one of the family packs has about 48 cookies in it, I think. So you're good with just one of these packs. So as this keeps whisking, you're going to keep increasing the speed so that it gets thicker and thicker and creamier, but keeping an eye on it so that it doesn't turn into butter. Not what we want to happen here today. This is the same way that you would make whipped cream for a dessert as a side dish. You would just add in about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. And then you've got sweet whipped cream for, you know, cake filling, icing, go with your strawberries. So learning this method of like what to look for when whipping cream is really helpful. So I want to show you this. I know it gets loud when this is on, I'm sorry. This is the texture about that your food processor is going to be able to get it to, which is nice and thick, but it's not finished yet, right? So I just want to kind of show you. This is like a very soft whipped cream, but it's not like a liquid cream anymore, but it's not the stiff whipped cream that we want. This is usually about as well as a food processor will do. And then you need to put it in a bowl or take this bowl off or take the food processor bowl off and use your whisk to finish it, because what we want is a very firm whipped cream. So I'm going to keep it going for about 30 seconds more to 45 seconds, and it should probably finish up quickly. Okay. I will say, if you don't have a mixer and you really don't want to make whipped cream by hand, this recipe works really well with, what's it called? Cool Whip, I think, yeah. Ready-made whipped cream, but the Cool Whip kind. It's like the texture of it is on point for this recipe. So if you wanted to just replace this and not make that yourself, you could absolutely do that. But I want to show you here in this camera, and I'll come over there too. This is nice and firm. It looks like I can spoon it out. When I bring it up on my whisk, it does not fall or drip or droop in any way. It's firm, sticking right to it, and you can see this is what we're talking about when something like egg whites or whipped cream and we're asking for it to be stiff peaks. It literally makes peaks and does not collapse. So the peaks don't droop down. We've got nice, firm, stiff peak, okay? That's what you're looking for with this whipped cream. A nice, well-whipped, firm whipped cream. I'm going to scrape this out into a bowl and then store it in the refrigerator. We want it to stay nice and firm and nice and cold while we get our cream cheese mixture ready, because if we let this get warm at room temp, all of that work that we just put into it, making it nice and aerated, it would deflate on itself, and then we wouldn't have a nice fluffy cheesecake. And this is because this is going to help us give it all of the air. Normally when we make cheesecake, it's an egg-based custard, and egg-based custards need to bake. Obviously we don't want to eat a lot of raw egg, but the egg is what leavens it. Leavening is it when it rises in the oven. Different things work as leavening agents. Baking soda, baking powder, yeast is a leavening agent, and eggs are a leavening agent. So when they bake in the custard, that's what makes the cheesecake rise up. But we don't have that in this, so we use nice fluffy whipped cream to make it really, really tall and thick. Okay? So you want to make sure that all that air we just put into it doesn't go away. So you keep it nice and cold in the fridge until we're ready. You don't have to clean out the mixer bowl yet. Where can I go here? I know I'm just yelling from the sidelines. We're going to be using this exact same mixer bowl for our cream cheese, and a little bit of whipped cream into our cream cheese is okay. So I'm not even going to worry about this bowl, washing it or rinsing it or anything, because we are just going to go right into it with our cream cheese. With the whisk attachment or with a handheld mixer, you could definitely do this part in a food processor too, because you're not looking for aeration, you're just looking for a smooth blend. So whatever tool you have to help you do it, you can definitely do that. If you don't have a machine to help, this is really easy in a bowl with a stiff silicone or wooden spoon, so you can really, really, really beat it and make the cream cheese nice and creamy. But any way you choose to do it, it's really fast and easy. All we're going to do is put in our 16 ounces of cream cheese. That's usually 2 of these classic little bricks. I don't recommend using whipped cream cheese for this. It's more air than it is cream cheese. But if that's what you have, then you would just use a little bit more of it. So you would add in maybe like another 4 ounces of it or so to make it 20 ounces total. Just because a lot of that ounceage is actually air, because it's a whipped cream cheese. So using these traditional classic like bricks of cream cheese is usually what you find in baking. So I'm going to go ahead and put these right into my bowl. And to that we're going to add the sugar and vanilla. But first we want to beat the cream cheese up a little bit, soften it up, make it kind of a smooth and creamy mixture. Get it started before we put in our sugar. All in there. Okay. Again, you're going to start it on low so that it doesn't like cause a big disaster, and then gradually turn up the speed. And what you're looking for is just softened and smooth so that it turns it into a nice sort of whipped consistency, but without making it too airy. If that makes sense, I'll show you here. Just want to loosen it up and get it ready to mix in with other ingredients. Just really quick. Tips, really fast and simple, wanted to give it a little bit of a head start. What we are also going to do is make sure that you're continually scraping down the sides. This cream cheese definitely wants to stick to the sides and the bottom, that little bump on the bottom of the bowl if you're using one of these stand mixers. If you're using a hand mixer, you want to do the same thing. Make sure that you're really scraping the sides of the bowl down very well to make sure that all that cream cheese gets in there. We're adding 1 full cup of powdered sugar. If you have a bag that says confectioner sugar, it's the same thing. It might be a slightly bit finer. There are different levels of fineness to the grain of powdered sugar. There's 10x and there's 6x. It sort of means like how refined it is, how powdery it is, but it all works the same in this recipe. So any kind of powdered sugar or confectioner sugar or whatever it's called, just make sure that it's nice powdered sugar. Now, this is a really fun substitution. If you want to write this down on the recipe, or if you have a little note somewhere where you keep your cooking tips and tricks, if you don't have powdered sugar and you don't want to go out and buy it, you have everything else and you want to put this recipe together fast, you can make your own powdered sugar, or at least a very close replica of powdered sugar, by mixing 1 cup regular sugar with 1 tablespoon cornstarch. That will give you a slight substitute, you know, pretty close substitute for powdered sugar. What that cornstarch does is it helps the granulated sugar to be separate and to be more of like a fine grain item. And so it actually, it can mimic this very well in lots and lots of recipes. So I hope that that substitution is helpful for your baking careers and your baking lifetime. I know that sometimes I start to make a whole recipe and then I realize I'm out of something that I need. So those substitutions are really, really, really helpful. So there you go for powdered sugar. 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon cornstarch, or arrowroot, which could be a whole other class. Arrowroot is very similar to cornstarch though. So there you go. I'm adding in my 1 cup powdered sugar and 1 teaspoon vanilla extract. This is very important for this flavor. Basically, the whole flavor of this cake is Oreo. So this vanilla is going to add that really classic dessert quality. Just makes everything that's sweet taste sweeter and better. So vanilla is a really great thing to have around. I'm not a super snob. If you don't have pure 100% vanilla and you got the imitation vanilla, that's okay. It's gonna taste really, really good. Yeah, regular vanilla is a slightly better flavor. It's just a little bit more natural tasting, but imitation vanilla is perfectly fine in a pinch. So I've got my teaspoon of vanilla extract, my sugar, and my cream. I'm going to turn this on very slowly so that powdered sugar doesn't end up all over the table. Okay, first turn it on to 1. Let it slowly start to bring in that dry sugar from the edges. And then up another notch, and then progressively go until it starts to combine into a nice mixture. The cream cheese that is stuck on the whisk is going to release itself. The faster you allow it to spin, that centrifugal force is going to actually pull some of the cream cheese away from the sides of the pan, and it's going to do a lot of the work for you. If you're doing a hand mixer, make sure that you're going all the way to the bottom of the bowl and around the sides, and then use your spatula to scrape it up and then start again. I'm going to go up all the way to the top speed. I'm going to scrape it down, and then I'm going to do it one more time, and then we're done. The faster it goes, the more it sort of it's all combines in on itself. I don't have to do very much work. Okay, one time scrape it down just to be sure. We're getting a really even distribution of all of that sugar and vanilla. I can see there's a little bit of powdered sugar stuck to the bottom, so you definitely want to make sure that you're getting it really well combined. Otherwise, the sugar is not going to end up dissolving properly into the mixture. Because we're not cooking it, remember? That's the whole fun. So one more time, back up to high speed. All right. Cool. That is the hard, that's really the crux of it. We're going to fold. This is the real important step. I mean, it's all important, but folding correctly can make or break your fluffy, creamy cheesecake. If you fold it too fast or not patiently enough, you're gonna end up with a flat cheesecake. Still gonna taste delicious, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be nice and tall and fluffy like we want it to be. I'm gonna do it into the large bowl. I think, yeah, we're just gonna do it right into the mixer bowl, but I'm gonna set this mixer aside. I wanna make sure you guys can see everything really, really well here. Okay. So I definitely want to get all of this goodness off this whisk. This is all really important part of our cream cheese filling. That's at least like 5 bites of cheesecake stuck on that whisk, and I know I want those 5 bites. So you got to make sure you get all your goodness into the bowl, and then you can start folding. Which I know how smart you guys all are. You could probably figure this out. Folding is really simple, but it's a really important technique when it comes to cooking and baking. So I've got my stiffer mixture here. The cream cheese is nice and soft and smooth, but technically it's stiffer. It's got more of resistance when I stir it. It's a harder, more solid-like substance as compared to the whipped cream. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break all the rules I just told you by gently folding. We're gonna sacrifice, that's what this is called. We're gonna sacrifice a small amount of our whipped cream into our bowl, just a little bit. But what that does is it lightens this mixture up a lot. And then it makes it even easier to fold in our super, super light whipped cream. So we're gonna add in our sacrifice. You don't have to be too dainty with this. Just go ahead and combine it. Mix it in nice and fluffy. What we're trying to do is actually make that cream cheese mixture smoother. Okay, so sacrifice about a cup, anywhere between a half a cup to a cup and a half, anywhere in there, of your whipped cream into the cream cheese mixture. Go ahead and give it a good stir. And that has made this cream cheese mixture like 4 times lighter and more aerated already than it was, which now is going to make this process a lot simpler. I'm going to do it half and half, 1 batch at a time, just so that I'm not completely ruining all of our whipped cream. I'm going to try to do this over the camera. You can see just half the whipped cream, still about half left in that bowl, okay? Right there, and then all we want to do is fold. So we go under and over, under and over, and then split in the middle to incorporate that whipped cream all the way through. Under and over, under and over, and you just keep folding it in until it has fully combined and it doesn't look like streaks of whipped cream mixed into your streaks of cream cheese. So you just keep gently folding all the way on the bottom, making sure to pick up all that heavy cream cheese mixture and fold it over. Once you've got this 50% or more of the way folded in, you can go ahead and add in the rest of your whipped cream. Scraping it down, making sure to get all of it out of that bowl. We want all of that air and all of that flavor. And now it's just about gently folding. Gently folding. This is a true test in patience, you guys. It would be a lot easier to just mix it and you're done. And then you're gonna have a really, really flat cheesecake because it's not gonna have anything to leaven it, right? It's not gonna have any of that aeration that we've built in with all of that fluffy air. So you wanna be really patient and slow and steady, and that's how you can win this race. It's just folding it over until it looks like it's one color, one mixture, one thickness, As you pull your spatula through, you can feel that it all feels the same. It's all the same consistency and viscosity. You want it to feel like it's well mixed, the same weight throughout. I can still see just a couple of teeny tiny streaks of cream cheese in mine because it's a slightly more off-white color than the bright white whipped cream. So you just be careful, making sure that you're folding it very, very well. So you can still see how fluffy that is, how nice and jiggly and aerated it all is. That is going to be our delicious cream cheese filling. But we need our Oreos, right? There's Oreos in every step of this cake. So we have to fold in 15 chopped Oreos. I'm going to kind of pound them. You can chop them. You can do it in a food processor, like pulse it 1 or 2 times. We are not going for fine grain crumbs like we did for the crust. You're just going for broken up cookies. If we put them in too big, then you're going to get big chunks of cookie when you bite into your slice of cheesecake. If you put them in too small, it's just going to turn our cheesecake filling all brown. We want to be able to see the Oreo pieces, but 8, not have it ruin the texture of the cake. It can be anywhere around 12 cookies, 15 cookies, it doesn't have to be exact. You do want to make sure that you have a few left, maybe a small handful, 4 or 6 cookies that you can use to decorate the cake. That's the fun part. You can cut them in half, you can put them on top, you can do all kinds of fun things. And I will show you that too. Let me get my little hammer. Just going to give these a general smash. Can you see this here? Yeah. Boy, that is satisfying. That's really fun. Even if you don't make the cheesecake, just smash some cookies when you feel stressed out. It's super fun. Okay. Keeps me up. I've got nice broken pieces of cookie. It's going to be really well distributed in our cake. See that? I'm going to fold it very gently into our folded cream mixture. We don't want to ruin all of that work we just did by gently folding it. So we want to maintain our patience and just fold them in, just until they combine, just enough. These are very heavy cookies. They're going to want to deflate all of our aerated food. So really, really, really gently, just until it's combined. You don't need to overmix it. They're all going to kind of settle into place inside the pan. Just get them in there. That's it. Don't overmix. So then we go into our springform pan in the fridge with the crust. Okay, so it's been in there a good amount of time, about 20 minutes at least. It's nice and cold, well compressed and firm. So all we do is gently spoon our mixture into our cake pan. Getting all of it in there. And then we're going to gently spread it around, making sure that we're distributing it nice and evenly. Okay, the same spatula, it works really, really well, or you can use the back of a spoon, or if you have a cake spatula, which is one of those offset, slanted spatulas made for decorating cakes, then that would be perfect. But anything like this would work just fine. You're just trying to even it out a little bit. I'm just trying to distribute my cookies a little bit more evenly here. See, it's very forgiving. You don't have to make it perfect. You just kind of get it in there and make it look good. Spread it out so that not one side is taller than the other. You want to try a nice, even cake. That is starting to look so good. Okay. All of that off of there. It's good stuff. So now decorating it before it goes into the refrigerator. You can chop up your Oreos, you can crush them up and then sprinkle it around like the edges. That's really, really pretty. You can cut them in half and put them like on each slice. So you would decide how many slices you want to get out of your cake. If it's maybe 8 is a pretty decent size for a 9-inch pan. If you have a smaller pan, then probably 6 slices. And then so you would put your Oreo like where you think each slice would be. Or you can just kind of crumble them and scatter them around. This is the fun part. I can't tell you how to decorate your cake. This is your canvas. You know, get your easel and your paints ready and create your artwork. And then the best part is you get to eat it later. Oh, it's beautiful artwork, delicious artwork. So however you decide to decorate your cake, it's very personal. I can't decide that for you. And I really hope you send me pictures of how you decorate your cheesecakes, because I know everyone's going to do theirs all a little bit differently, and that's the whole fun of being creative when you're cooking and baking. How would you like to present this when it's finished? How do you want to be able to cut slices out of it? So thinking about where you want your cookie crumbles to go so that everybody gets a little piece on their slice. That's what's most important. I'm going to put these cookies back into my bag, just give them a little bit of a rough smash. And then I'm going to decorate the outer edge of the cake so that everybody gets a little bit of cookie crumble, but that the center still stays nice and clean looking, because then I like to add strawberries. I know that's just like taking it to a whole nother level, but I really do like to add strawberries. It makes it really delicious right in the center, and it makes it look pretty. So I leave the center kind of empty when I'm doing mine, and then I decorate the outside so that I can put strawberries in the middle when it's finally ready tomorrow or later tonight. More fun cookie smashing, but not a ton. I still want them to be recognizable, bigger pieces of cookie for me, for my cake. And I'll show you what I'm going to do there. Just kind of decorating the outside with rustic cookie crumble pieces. That's sort of that's a trade secret, you guys. If you ever wanted to work in the industry and become a professional cook or a baker, when something looks like maybe you made a little bit of a mistake, or maybe it got messed up a little bit, but it's still delicious, we call it rustic. That's a fancy word for, it doesn't look perfect, but it's amazing. So this is our rustic Oreo cheesecake with good rustic decorations. But when you think about your design and you take that extra minute to just think about what it might look like in the end, it really helps to make your final design really, really special. What I do when I'm making really fancy desserts or something that I'm selling to people, I draw it on a piece of paper first. And sometimes I don't like the first design that I come up with. I'm like, well, that's actually not going to look that pretty. I'm glad that I drew that first and didn't waste my whole time. And then once you draw out a few different options, then you kind of get a feel for how you might want to decorate your cake. But that's as you're getting into more and more delicate baking methods and procedures. But you can see a little bit of dust, a little bit of sprinkle. I've got my edges so that when I cut slices into my cake, every slice is going to get some of this nice cookie crumble around the edge, and then some strawberries in the middle, because why not? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our Oreo cheesecake. It couldn't really be any simpler. I know that some of these things take a little bit more time. If you don't have a mixer to make your whipped cream in, then it's going to take a little bit more time and a little bit more elbow grease. But it's 100% makeable, doable, even without any fancy equipment. If you don't have the springform pan, making it in any cake pan or any casserole dish is going to be delicious. And so what you would end up doing, instead of taking the sides off and slicing it, you're just going to scoop it out of whatever pan that you made it in. And it's going to be like a Oreo cheesecake sundae in a bowl, and it's going to be outstanding. I promise you that. So lots of options to eat this, lots of options on how to make it, lots of options on obviously how to decorate it. The most important step is this needs to go into the Oh, where did that go? Fridge. Ha! I'm so sorry. I think it looks like the last line of the recipe got cut off, and I'm just now realizing that. That should just say remove the cheesecake from the fridge, remove from the springform pan, and slice and serve. So I'm sure you figured that out. You're all very, very capable, smart people. But if you had any questions of like, what is that? What was that? Remove the cheesecake from the fridge and then remove it from the springform pan and slice and serve. So yeah, if there are any more specific questions about the cheesecake itself, please let me know. We did have one question earlier on in class that I'll answer now. This is not the last class, this is our second to last class. Next week is our final kids cooking class for the summer. Our 6-week session is coming to an end next week. Next week I'm planning my favorite, or save the best for last like I do. We're going to be making vegetable pot stickers with a soy ginger sauce. I'm really excited about that. Back into cooking, back into savory action, really delicious snack and dinner option. So I'll send out the recipe and ingredients needed for that Friday afternoon. As usual, look for that. But then, yeah, after next week, unfortunately, we're going to be taking a pause just for August, I think. And then when we get back into our fall quarter in September, we will have classes again and programming resuming again. So keep an eye on our Instagram page, keep an eye on our website. Email me if it's gotten like later on in August and you're wondering what we might be offering in terms of programming. I am always in favor of offering these kids classes. So if I can get that on our schedule, then we will continue having kids cooking throughout the fall semester. So just keep an eye out, send me any questions or feedback that you might have, and you know, keep your fingers crossed. But it looks like we should be able to keep offering these classes. I know that I've been enjoying them, and hopefully you have been too. So I hope that answers that question about, yes, we're almost at the end of our session here for summer. I know it's sad, but we've had a lot of fun. We've made a lot of really fun things. This is one of the most fun things I think that we've made, maybe. I'm really excited. I love cheesecake. Yeah, I think that's it. If there are any other questions or specific notes about this, please send me your photos. You know how much I love to see those. Oh, good question. Can you use vanilla Oreos? Yeah, definitely. It would be a different cake. It would be a different flavor, but that would be so good. Really, really good. When I grew up, I know this is going to be crazy sounding. I don't like Oreos. Like, I don't eat them as a cookie. Something about the texture of the chocolate part, it's just a little dry for me. I'm a weirdo, okay? I'm sorry. But so in cheesecake form, I actually really like them, but I understand they might not be everyone's favorite. The vanilla would work really well. You could technically make the crust out of any cookie, right? You just grind it up and make a dust and then combine it with just enough melted butter to combine it and compact it and make it firm. You could have a really, really delicious crust. You could have a vanilla wafer crust and then make a banana cheesecake, like fancy banana pudding style. That would be incredible. And so if anybody wanted to play with any variations on this recipe, or if you in a week you realize how much fun this was and you want to try it with a totally different kind of cookie or a different kind of flavor profile, reach out to me. I've got lots of ideas and lots of recipe resources. So, you know, just because next week might be our last class for now, doesn't mean that I'm not still here. So if you guys have any questions or any issues while you keep cooking, please let me know. I'm always happy to help answer anything that I possibly can. So I'm just going to show this off one more time because, oh my God, you guys. It's going to be so good. When you put it in your refrigerator, this is key. We didn't wrap it up when we put it in last time because we were just chilling our crust. You absolutely want to wrap this before you put it in your fridge, okay? Wrap it up, give it a nice tight cover, whether that's with plastic wrap or you have that like awesome resealable beeswax or any kind of reusable cover. Just make sure that it's nice and tight. Put it in the fridge for at least 4 hours or so, and then you can have it for dessert tonight or breakfast for tomorrow morning, maybe. And it will last you for however long that you cannot eat it. I suppose it won't go bad in like days. It will still be edible in 4 to 5 days, although the Oreos will get chewy. They will no longer be crunchy on top, but the longer it stays in your refrigerator. And you might get a little bit of a release of liquid from the cream in the Oreos, but like it's not bad. It just might get a little bit wet looking on top, like condensation. But again, that's just from being in the fridge for days. So it doesn't need to stay in the fridge for days. Eat it, share it with your neighbors and friends and family. And then if you cannot finish this whole cake, which I understand, it's a big cake, you can freeze. So cut it in half, eat half of it this week or next week, and then wrap the other half super duper tightly. I recommend with plastic and foil. That will really help prevent freezer burn. And then thaw it out, in another 2 weeks, and you've got more Oreo cheesecake. Okay, so there's your options. It is best though eaten like within the first couple of weeks if you are, even if you do freeze it. Like the Oreos just get that kind of like chewy, stale consistency, but still gonna taste really good, all right? So options there on how you can save it, on how you can preserve it. Just make sure that you chill it long enough so that it sets up and it slices clean through, and make sure that you keep it wrapped tight as you store it in the fridge, and that's it. If there are any other questions, please let me know. I know that we finished a little bit early here today, so I'm not going to chase you off. If you're finishing up your cheesecake, if you want to show me, hey, love that. If you have any questions, I'm here for you. Otherwise, I had so much fun in this class. I hope you really enjoy your cheesecake, and I hope I see you next week for pot stickers. And I'm going to stop the recording.